There's a city on the Ohio River. It didn't wait for an apology. Cincinnati doesn't brag about its food, doesn't need to. But the first video ended, and the city was still standing there, arms crossed. 10 more dishes in its hands. A river city, a German city, an immigrant city, built by people who arrived with nothing and left a culinary fingerprint no other American city can lift. The chip dust drifts down Reading Road. The copper kettles are still turning. The chili parlors never closed. 10 dishes this city doesn't just make it, OWNS. Let's decode this. Empress Chili. Let's start a fight. Texas thinks it owns chili. Texas has never eaten a five-way. There is no beef broth in Cincinnati chili, not one drop. No cumin backbone, no Lone Star theology. What exists instead is cinnamon, allspice, a whisper of chocolate. A Mediterranean pantry dropped into the middle of Ohio and called something it technically wasn't. Tom Karadziev, the Empress. Vine Street, 1922. A Macedonian immigrant with a billiard hall and a homeland meat sauce and no playbook for what came next. He couldn't sell his family's recipe as is. Nobody was buying. So he put it over spaghetti, called it chili. Cincinnati looked at it and said yes without hesitation. The way system came after. Two-way, three-way, four-way, five-way. No other city in America invented a numbered menu category for a single dish. Cincinnati built an entire grammar around a bowl. Anthony Bourdain called it genuinely strange, genuinely Cincinnati. The James Beard Foundation recognized it before the coastal food world stopped laughing. The working class ate it every Tuesday regardless. A Macedonian man put his homeland in a bowl. Cincinnati claimed it completely. That's not fusion. That's how food actually works. Grippo's barbecue chips. Every city has barbecue chips. Only one city has Grippo's. Vito Grippo. Reading Road, Cincinnati, 1919. Family operation from day one. Never chased national distribution. Never chased anything. Still doesn't. The rules are strict. Thicker cut, darker color, cooked almost to the edge of burnt, by design. Other BBQ chips nationwide are built on sweetness. Grippo's is built on tang. Vinegar forward. Sharp on first contact and then smoke that lingers like it has somewhere to be. Other chip brands calibrate for broad markets. Grippo's calibrates for Cincinnati. The difference is everything. Stadium chip. Factory worker lunch chip. The chip that leaves a stain on a white shirt and nobody apologizes. Grippo's dust became so essential that fans buy it separately by the bag and cook with it. That's not a condiment. That's an ingredient. That's a city inventing its own spice blend and calling it a snack. Some flavors don't travel. This one stays home. Gold Star Chili in 1965. A Lebanese family out, Cincinnati. The Bidar family. Covington, Kentucky, a city width across the Ohio River, 1965. Lebanese immigrants who looked at a Macedonian American chili tradition and entered the ring without apologizing for it. Only in this city does that sentence make complete sense. The rules are Gold Star's own sweeter spice profile, more cinnamon up front, a wider cheese pull that folds over the edge of the plate before the fork arrives. Other regional chains franchise outward and dilute inward. Gold Star stayed Cincinnati, stayed specific, never explained itself to anyone who hadn't crossed the river. Gold Star outsells Skyline in several Cincinnati zip codes. That fact lives rent-free in the heads of Skyline loyalists who have never verified it and never will because looking it up feels like admitting something. Two chili empires. One city. No resolution on the horizon. Cheese piled so high it folds before you can start. Immigration layered on, immigration on top of spaghetti in a bowl. That's Cincinnati. Aglamesis Brothers, chocolates, somewhere in Norwood. A Greek family is still working their grandfather's recipe. The same copper kettles, the same hands-on method, the same Cincinnati. Tom and James Aglamesis. Norwood, Cincinnati, 19008. French-style confections in an American Midwest city before that combination made any obvious sense. Handcrafted, never scaled for efficiency, never chased a national account. The operation today looks almost identical to the operation a century ago, because the operation a century ago was correct. The rule is simple, no shortcuts. Industrial molds exist, Aglamesis doesn't use them. Speed exists, Aglamesis ignores it. They survived Prohibition. They survived the Depression. They survived 2 world wars and suburban sprawl and the slow hollowing out of Norwood's industrial base around them. During World War II, sugar rationing hit hard enough to nearly end everything. They made less. They never made worse. That distinction kept them. The chocolate shell gives a clean snap, still, every single time. That's not nostalgia. That's precision maintained across 116 years, small, stubborn, still here. Only here Frisch's hot fudge cake. Big Boy belongs to Cincinnati. The rest is franchise paperwork. Dave Frisch. The Mainliner Drive-In, 1947. Frisch's didn't license the Big Boy concept. Frisch's was the Big Boy concept in the Midwest before corporate consolidation rewrote the ownership story. The tartar sauce recipe most Americans know and assume came from somewhere vague? Cincinnati. Cincinnati. Frisch's, 1947. That's where it came from. The hot fudge cake has its own law: vanilla ice cream, hot fudge, whipped cream, chocolate cake. In that order, at that temperature, in that bowl. Non-negotiable. Other big boy chains dropped it when menu simplification came calling. Corporate pressure arrived with spreadsheets. Frisch's said no. Local loyalty held the line, hot fudge pooling under cold ice cream. That temperature collision, the moment the heat and cold find each other on the way to the same spoon, is not incidental. That collision is the entire point. Not every city made a diner iconic. Cincinnati made a diner eternal. Camp, Washington Chili's Jumbo. The oldest continuously operating chili parlor in Cincinnati is almost unknown outside it. Steve Anagnos. Camp Washington neighborhood, 1951. A Greek immigrant who learned the craft from the Greeks who learned it from the Macedonians who invented it in 1922. Cincinnati's food history is a relay race run entirely by immigrants who handed the baton without ever slowing down. The Jumbo has no equivalent anywhere on earth. Eggs, meat, chili, spaghetti, one plate, one neighborhood, one set of rules that have never been renegotiated. Other chili parlors offer variations on the theme. The Jumbo is the theme. The Camp Washington neighborhood lost its factories, lost its workforce, lost its population to the suburbs, and the economic dislocations that followed. The chili parlor stayed outlasted every factory around it, outlasted the industry that built the neighborhood. The James Beard Foundation gave it an America's Classic Award, the most no-frills building that honor has ever touched. An egg yolk bleeding into chili sounds wrong. Tastes like Camp Washington. When the neighborhood fell, the chili parlor stayed standing. Taste of Belgium waffles, somewhere at Findlay Market in 2007. An immigrant changed Cincinnati's Saturday mornings forever. Jean-Francois Fourneau, Findlay Market, Cincinnati, 2007. A Belgian man with a Liège waffle recipe, a market booth and nothing else. Before that booth opened, Liège waffles did not exist in mainstream American food culture. Not in New York, not in Chicago, not in Los Angeles. Cincinnati said yes first. The rules are not negotiable. A Liège waffle uses dough, not batter pearl. Sugar caramelized directly in the iron, not a topping, not a drizzle, not an afterthought. Built into the structure. American waffle chains use batter and call it Belgian. It is not Belgian. It is not even the same category. Cities that now claim the Liège waffle trend came after Findlay Market. They came after Cincinnati paid attention when everyone else was looking somewhere else. Caramelized sugar crunch on the outside. Chewy, dense pull on the inside. One immigrant, one waffle iron, one city paying attention. Christian Marline beer by 1880. Cincinnati was the third largest beer city in America. Most people think Milwaukee. Christian Marline over the Rhine. 1853. A German immigrant who built a brewery, then built a neighborhood, then built an identity for an entire American city. The lager he established had its own law. Cold fermented, clean finishing, bitter dry, not sweet, not hazy, not adjusted for a trend. Cincinnati had more breweries per capita than Milwaukee in the 1870s. That fact has been buried under a century of marketing from cities that arrived later and marketed harder. Prohibition 1919 killed every Cincinnati brewery. 18 of them, the entire infrastructure that German immigrants had built over 60 years, gone in a federal moment. Moreline was revived in 1981. 62 years after Prohibition erased it, Cincinnati exhumed it. Some cities bury their dead. Cincinnati brings them back. Cold, dry, faintly bitter. Tastes like a city that refused to stay buried. Prohibition killed it. Cincinnati brought it back. Some things don't stay dead. Illy's Barbecue. Eli Friday Jr. started with a parking lot, a smoker, and no plan to stop Eli Friday. Junior Riverside Drive pop-up, Cincinnati. 2007. Black-owned, Cincinnati-born, answering to no other city's barbecue tradition and not apologizing for it. Not Memphis, not Kansas City, not Texas. Eli's built its own law. Tangy, vinegar-forward, Cincinnati-specific in a way that those other cities would call unorthodox and Cincinnati calls. Correct. The rules belong to Eli's alone. The smoke runs long. The bark runs deep. The vinegar cut arrives at the back of every bite and keeps the whole thing honest. Other barbecue cities have canons. Eli's doesn't follow any of them. That non-compliance is the point. A parking lot pop-up became a destination. A destination became a legend. A legend became a line around the block. On a Tuesday afternoon with no event attached. Brisket bark crackling under pressure. Smoke embedded so deeply it doesn't fade between bites. Not an imitation of anywhere. The original of here. Buskin Bakery's political cookie. Every election season, a Cincinnati bakery bakes the candidates' faces onto sugar cookies and predicts the winner. Buskin Bakery, Hyde Park, Cincinnati. Political cookies since the 1980s. Dan Buskin, fourth generation, still frosting politicians' faces by hand. The system has no algorithm, no polling methodology, no margin of error calculation. Sales tracked like a precinct map. Whichever candidate's cookie outsells the other wins. Every time. Except once. Buskin's cookie poll has correctly predicted Cincinnati area elections with near-perfect accuracy for 40 years. Political parties buy bulk orders and monitor the sales numbers like a war room. Local news covers it. National outlets occasionally notice and don't know what to do with it. Nobody planned this. Dan Buskin's grandfather didn't set out to build a democratic institution out of butter and sugar. It happened because Cincinnati showed up, bought cookies, and turned a bakery's gimmick into something that turned out to be data. An old bakery turned a campaign season into a community ritual. Butter sugar, a candidate's face dissolving on the tongue. Cincinnati democracy, participatory, sweet, and somehow accurate. A bakery that predicts elections, a city that votes with its sweet tooth. That city on the Ohio River. We came back. It had more. Not every city has a man who put cinnamon and allspice in a bowl, called it chili, and won a permanent argument. Not every city keeps a Greek family's copper kettles turning since 1908 without modernizing a single piece of equipment. Not every city predicts its elections with a frosted sugar cookie and gets the answer right for 40 years running. Cincinnati does things its own way. Always has. Always will. The food is the proof. Stay curious.